Ooh. We are live. Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry for being late, but Chris is having a little bit of an emergency already in the bar. We're barely even open, and there's already emergencies in bars. So yeah, if anyone's looking for a job, Chris will give it to you. So give him a call.
If you're familiar with Kilkenny, I made it from one side to the other in 3 minutes.
It was 3 minutes flat. He's really fast, aerodynamic. Yeah. Anyway, welcome everybody. This is our Something is Brewing Taste, and this is number 4 now at this stage, I think.
4 of 9.
4 of 9. Yeah, so we're doing well. So today we're going to concentrate on beer finishes, and more specifically Teeling's beer finishes. We have our lovely guest Robert Caldwell. Thank you for joining us, and obviously he'll answer all the really difficult questions about Teeling that I won't be able to. I'll try my best to cover beers as much as I can, even though I wouldn't be have the biggest knowledge, but I'll do my best. Chris will spot me if I need help. And so this tasting kind of came true, as in, there's beer finishes being made left, right, and center. And I always wanted to find if there is actually any significant differences between different styles of beers. There's so many beers, and are they actually making an impact that you can taste in the end product? And I think Teeling, the way they do it is very easy to kind of distinguish, because they're basing all the finish on the collaboration batches on their original small batch, and then you be able to pick out the differences much better, because exactly what sort of a whiskey is inside, and then added finish just puts the flavors forward, with the beer. So shall we start with the small batch then, and then maybe Robert will take us through what we're actually drinking in the original small batch.
If you don't mind, Adrian, if I'm going to cut across, I want to set everyone a bit of a challenge tonight.
Okay.
It's going to be difficult, but everyone has a 50 ml bottle of Teeling small batch, and what I'm challenging everybody to do is hold onto it for the whole tasting, because all 6 of the beer finishes that we are trying tonight are at one point, or were at one point, the same whiskey, this pre-rum small batch blend. So essentially what we're going to do is taste small batch once. I'll talk through how that's made, but then as we go through each of the whiskeys, I want to bring it back to small batch and see if we can draw those distinctive flavor notes from the grain and the malt. Obviously the rum is not part of the beer finishes, but it is really interesting to see how different they are from whiskey to whiskey, and the only differences between them will be the the beer cask in which they spent a little bit of time.
This was probably the most perfect lineup to actually get it done. We're going through 2 different types of the same stout, but from different year. Then we're going through 2 different porters, which are made in a different way. Then we're going to 2 different ales, which are completely different from each other. So all basically have same DNA at the background, and then the finish is just there to show what kind of an impact the beer has. So I can't wait. I can't wait to taste them all. So.
All right, well, let's kick off with Teeling small batch. So Teeling small batch, our flagship product. It's in over 80 countries now. A lot of people's introduction to Teeling whiskey. It has a lot of, commonalities with how a lot of people still look at Irish whiskey, in that it's a blend. This is a blend of 3 parts grain. It's a non-GMO corn from France, and 1 part malt. These are basically picked at that stage. So basically think of them as, they're made separately, and then we pick barrels at that stage. So this draws back to the small batch. We know it's an overused term, but what it means to us is everything's hands-on. So think of it like twice aged, twice blended, not for the snappy slogan, but more gives us 2 bites of the cherry to make sure that balance of flavors there. So we hand select the 3 barrels of grain whiskey and the 1 barrel of malt, blend that, and then that becomes our core blend. As we kind of talked about, we're so good at making that blend because we make it every 18 months. We're not blending for mass uniformity. We're not building, filling up IBCs upon IBCs. Chris has been to our warehouse. We don't have the space for that. So again, it forces us to remake our whiskeys every 18 months. So we get better and better at balancing those flavors and knowing what to look for in the plethora of casks that we have available to us. Then that small selection, or that small batch of that blend, is put into Central American rum casks for the most part to make Teeling small batch. And again, it's not a minimum age. We're not just putting it aside and setting a timer. It again is hand selected and picked. So essentially, you go to the rack of Central American casks, and it's tasting them. It's tasting about 50 casks around that amount. Works out to be about 10,000 bottles, and then that's the batch of it is fun. I've been up there. It's a great day out. Just don't drive. Chris has been up there with me as well. But yeah, that's like why you see the batch date on the bottles. That's what that refers to.
Actually, quick question when it comes to the batch numbers, because I actually spotted that on the amber ale there isn't a year and a batch date as such, as opposed to all the other ones. That's the only one that actually didn't have a date on where it was bottled. Is there a reason why?
No, we're just updating. I mean, we're going more codes than dates. The dates are great. It's that whole kind of transparency discussion. Some people say we're transparent, some people will say we aren't. We love to be transparent, but sometimes it is a little bit of a waste of time. Right. When you're selling big products like this to mass markets, it sometimes confuses the issue. You want to bring people to the category, you want to bring people to drink something new from Irish whiskey. And again, Chris, you'll love this analogy, sharing a background to me, but it's like approaching someone in Ireland with a complicated cocktail menu. You give them a cocktail menu that has all these massive, complicated ingredients in. They're just going to go, I don't care. Give me a mojito. It sometimes can confuse the issue. So, yes, a percentage of the whiskey-loving community that want to know every last little detail about every single bottle. But yeah, sometimes flavor trumps all, and that's what we're going to go with.
So sometimes on that note, when you're looking back at different batch years, or you're looking at different reference numbers or cask numbers, you can turn around and say, just like wines or champagnes, that the 2018 specific cask type was the best that you've tried, or that's, if you're looking for something that's something more spicy than malty or whatever, that could be the one that you always look for, and you go on a hunt for it. When you end up doing something like this, where you're removing the numbers from the front of the bottle, it's more, this is the core flavor we're trying to achieve, just like your normal small batch. And year upon year, when you go to it, you're looking for a certain profile. You're expecting the same thing each time. Whereas with the different numbers on the front, you can look at it as in a vintage that there is going to be nuanced differences. There is going to be, you're trying to get the cask to tell the story as opposed to making the liquid to a flavor profile. So it can have two sides of the coin, as Rob was saying. If you make it really complicated, some people will overlook it, and other people will actually search it out. So you could have one of these with a number on it. I see it without the number. I won't buy it. I will search out until I find one with a number.
Going back to this particular whiskey, so all of these whiskeys that we're going to be trying tonight, they're 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, so they are going to be a bit bolder, a bit fattier, a bit chunkier in the mouthfeel for sure, retaining those natural fats and essences. But yeah, essentially that 46% non-chill is our go-to. So yeah, all of these are going to sit around that. Obviously, things have been bottled higher, but yeah, 46 is our go-to sweet spot, as it is for some other companies as well, I guess.
That's it.
But yeah, this is Teeling Small Batch, very, very versatile whiskey for our flagship product, seen its use in myriad of different cocktails around the world, as well as standing up on its own as a lovely whiskey to drink neat, or in a highball, or rocks, or however you choose to drink it. So yeah, big fan of Teeling Small Batch.
Is that the whiskey also used for your newest Whiskey Smash canned cocktail? Yeah, obviously. Yeah, no, I'm really happy for that. I got a can there. I can't wait to crack it. Obviously, I was drinking it throughout the trial process, and it was starting to be a bit same. But now that it's got a label on it, it almost feels like finished. So tomorrow afternoon, Friday afternoon, it's my birthday, so I'm gonna put the feet up after a day's work, crack it, and taste the fruits of my labor. Yeah, perfect
exactly.
timing. Yeah, no, I'm really interested to try the whole kind of canned cocktail. Obviously, arised from the situation we found ourselves in, but I think yeah, it's moving along in a nice direction. Like especially like with Teeling, you've been doing it kind of even before that. You had the highball, I think, beforehand, and I only heard great things about it. So it's nice to see different drinks being canned, and yeah, I can't wait to try it.
And also great with the highball that they did. It's great to actually taste something with the word pineapple on the front of it and the word whiskey, that you can genuinely taste the whiskey. And genuine to anyone who's ever had White Claw and hard seltzers and stuff like that, where you're like, there's something there. There's a lot of spectrum, something there. With the highball one, you can taste the proper sour pineapple, and the whiskey is completely evident. It's great.
Yeah.
Too easy to smash.
Too easy to smash, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I mean, I think everyone at some stage had an experience with the small batch of some way, shape, or form. So yeah, we'll probably move on to the next one, and please use the small batch as your reference with flavor on the palates, with the smell. I found it very interesting. Compare what kind of a smell all of them have comparing to the original, the OG. That all of those whiskeys were before they were put into the casks, but. Anyway, we start on with the porters. So we have two 200 of fathoms imperial stout finishes. One of them is from 2017, and one of them is from 2020. Actually, I meant to ask you. I realized that there was a slight bit of difference between the 2017 and 2020 on the seal that you had over on the bottle. The 2017, you just had a tape with Teeling whiskey on it, and this you had actually a capsule, which just the one that peel off the aluminium ones. And when did you actually change over from having tape over to the thing? Because all of them after I think 2018 onwards, from what I've seen, it was 2017, 2019, and they're all with the aluminium foil over.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hard date. I mean, you can see the constant progression. We've just updated our bottles, so we now have the embossing on our bottles with the raised phoenix on Teeling small batch now on the back. You can see there on my camera.
I actually didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, it's a constant improvement. I mean, I remember the funniest one I ever did. It was before I even worked at Teeling. Was Revival #1. Before it even was part of the series, it was just the Revival. It was that big old metal cap on with the strip tape, and I bought mine from Amazon or somewhere random because it was long. I think it was we were going into #4 at that point, and I was collecting them, and I was having trouble finding #1, but I got it, and the strip label was broken.
Okay.
I was like, oh, but yeah, I mean, it's a constant progression. You constantly learn and evolve and adapt, and the strip labels are cool, and it helps with the hand bottling that used to occur. But as we improve, we put that money back into the bottles and the presentation of Teeling whiskey. So we got the aluminium shrink labels that just a little bit more security and a little bit more, because it's always about adapting and improving. We upgraded our corks, we upgraded a few bits and pieces over the year, and I to answer your question, I don't know the hard date. I don't think that's ever been written down from from August 2018 onwards. It's just been, an improvement. There would have been a period where some bottles had them and some didn't. But yeah. Anyway, I think I see Shane McCarthy's already cracking in. So
perfect. So I'm gonna try briefly trying to explain the differences and similarities between porters, stouts, imperial porters, Baltic porters, because technically they're all the same, but they're all different. It's like same, but still different. So it's a very difficult concept, and every brewer will tell you a different story, and every brewer will translate the difference between the styles of beers differently. So it's not like these rules are set in stone, but kind of historically speaking. Every porter started kind of being brewed in 1700s. Initially, the legend goes that it was a mixture of 3 beers that were available at the time, and they're basically mixed together in a glass in a bar in equal quantities. So it was a mild brown ale, It was a stale brown ale, which is like an aged ale, and then it was a pale ale. So they're all mixed together, and that was make porter allegedly. More official story goes that what was his name? Ralph Harwood was the first guy that actually brewed this style of beer by using these three styles of mash bill in one, and then basically brewing a first type of porter. It was named porter because obviously all those porters originally from London, and Port of London was quite big, and all these workers that worked in the port were called porters, like a slang term for port workers. And all these guys used to drink a porter style beer after work. It was a hearty beer. It didn't spoil as badly as lagers. It could be transported and further distances without being spoiled. And kind of that's where it originated. Originally, all porters were made with brown malt, which is like slightly a darker kind of a roast of malt. At that time, they didn't have a drum roaster, so they had to use brown malt and a little addition of pale malt. When the production kind of changed and the technology was coming in, especially the thermometer and the hydrometer, brewers realized that making beer with brown malt produced a nice dark beer, but the problem was you didn't get the same yield as you're getting with using pale malt. It was actually 2/3 lower of a yield from brown malt than pale malt, and they only realized that when thermometer and hydrometer came to place, because they actually couldn't figure out what kind of a yield each mash bill gave them. So with that in mind, obviously they wanted to produce beer and the best way and the cheapest way as well. So what happened was they started using more pale malt in their mash bill and using less brown malt. But what that affected was the color. So the color wasn't as dark as previously, and that didn't sit really well with the consumer base at the time. So what the brewers used to do at the time was kind of coloring with different agents. One of the common ways was actually cooking down the wort completely and getting like treacle-like syrup, and then using that to color the beer, or else using burnt brown sugar, or else using some sort of weird chemicals that they had in hand, and obviously that didn't sit well with the customers. Another problem was the tax on the malt that was being put at the time, and that was the time, kind of, let's say, late 1700s, early 1800s, this time during the Napoleonic Wars, and obviously Britain was involved with that war, and tax was being raised on malted barley to obviously fund the war against the French. So they didn't have access to good malt, so they had to figure out a way to change the color of the beer in a different way. And in 1817, a guy invented a drum roaster, which then they used to roast barley. They either called it patent malt, or they called it black malt. And then obviously the Irish and a guy named Arthur Guinness got a sniff of that as well. This guy is making this beer in Dublin. I don't know. It's kind of big. Apparently.
Is it one of these beers?
Don't think so. No, not one of these anyway.
Couldn't make it into the tasting.
But yeah, basically they started using this new technique to roast barley, and as I was saying, the tax was being put on malted barley. Hence, Irish distillers were using unmalted barley to reduce the cost of paying the taxman. And the same thing happened with Guinness, because Guinness didn't want to pay too many taxes. So instead of using malted barley and then roasting it in the roaster, he used it unmalted barley and roasted and roasted. And this due to this day, that's where the main difference between a porter and a stout kind of starts to appear. A porter is rule of thumb is made out of malted barley that was then roasted to whatever way they wanted. It was either chocolate or black malt. They've decided on the depthness of roast themselves. Whereas Irish brewers like Guinness, for example, they used unmalted barley and roasted that and used that instead. And what that gave you was that roasted malted barley was a little bit sweeter, you're getting more kind of a caramel notes, more of a maybe milk coffee, like a latte or something like that. Whereas the unmalted roasted barley gave you more kind of a espresso, bitter chocolate, dark chocolate, those kind of notes were coming through, and that's where the differentiation began to happen. And then you're going on a subject of imperial, and then basically the strength started to appear. So initially, a stout meant that was a strong porter, so it was called a stout porter. Stout was referring to the strength, that was an extra strength of a porter, and later on that developed to its own different style of beer. Imperial porters and imperial stouts originated from the fact that the Russians really liked English style porter, and they always wanted to import it into their own country. But the problem was the journey was quite long, and if a porter wasn't made to a high strength, it wouldn't survive the journey. It would be spoiled by the time it would get to Russia. So what happened was the imperial court of Catherine the Great, which they actually named the guys at Guinness named the beer Catherine the Great. They used to send an extra strength porter to Russia to make sure that it will survive the journey. And Catherine the Great liked it so much that she decided to have her own workers develop a style of beer that would somewhat be similar to the porters from England. And then over time, the relationship with Britain, England, and Russia was a little worse, so they couldn't import the beer as much. So what they developed was the Baltic Porter, which technically is a lager. It's actually not a porter. What they do is they use cold, what's the word I'm missing?
Cold brew coffee.
Not cold brew.
Iced tea?
No. Never mind. Anyway, they used a cold. I have to say it. I can't remember. What do you have after? You have. I'm sorry.
When you're describing the first one and you said the word treacle, since I've nosed it and tasted it, I can't get my mind off of it. That kind of bitter, roasted, extremely dark syrup. Does it come to you?
Fermentation. There we go.
Always works.
Cold fermentation. They use cold fermentation for Baltic porters, just because of the weather that they had. Obviously, it was much colder in the Baltic countries, and I would say it was also due to the types of ingredients that they had. I would imagine there was some sort of rye implemented in there as well, into the mash bill. So an imperial Baltic porter essentially is closer to an imperial stout than it is to a porter. An imperial Baltic porter should be a little bit sweeter than an imperial stout, as it shouldn't have as much of a roasted barley or a black malt in it, but it should have more than a standard porter. A standard porter should be quite sweet, should be very malty in flavor, and it should be kind of medium to low amount of hops present, whereas stouts should be much bitter, much more darker, much bigger presence of hops in it, and that's kind of basically the difference. Again, as I was saying, different brewers will translate it in their own little way. So when you see a porter, it could be closer to a stout than it is to a porter. It really depends on the mash bill. In general, porter should be sweeter. It still should be dark. It should be a little bit sweeter. It shouldn't be as bitter. It should get more of a treacle and caramel coming through. Whereas with stouts, you should be getting more bitter, dark chocolate, burnt, kind of sugar, maybe a little bit like that. Imagine Guinness, and maybe imagine what would be kind of a good sweet porter.
More Murphy's.
Murphy's, or else even the Long Full from O'Hara's, that's kind of a little bit on a sweeter side. I know it says stout or double stout, but yeah, it's a little bit sweeter. But yeah, that's basically the main differences. Obviously, with the first two, it's the same imperial stout that Galway Bay makes, and they make it every year. You've been collaborating for the last 6 years, as far as I remember.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, we have since moved to Dot Brew, so we did a lot of collaborations with Galway Bay over the years, but obviously, you know, they want to work with other people. We would like to work with other people, so it's not a exclusive relationship.
Okay, yeah.
Ignore the connotations there, but yeah, we've started working with Dot Brew, and Shane from Dot Brew has been really helpful, not just with our beer collaborations, but some of the other stuff that we do. So that's why we included one of his beers, so you can finish off with that one. But yeah, the collaborations with Galway Bay lasted many years. We probably might go back to them at some stage, but we did do a couple of different imperial stout finishes, which became our stout cask. You know, we did the one batch, and it proved to be quite successful. It won an award at the World Whiskey Awards. So we did, a second, and we're going to try two of them here today. So should we jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of going to go side by side with the two, to be honest.
I think it's a good idea. It shows that progression. So while you were talking about the history of porter and stout, I kind of went back and reminded myself, and I forgot how dry the one from 2017 was.
Yeah.
On the nose, I get a little bit more malt than I do porter. I think it's not as impactful. These were around about 6 months on average. The whiskey spent about 6 months in these stout casks. But if you go back from the 2017 to small batch, it's hugely different.
Completely, yeah. Like, I mean, you think it's a different whiskey altogether.
Well, that's
exactly.
it. With the small batch, the sweetness you're getting is more the rum and raisin, kind of caramels, toffees, what you would expect to get from a rum cask. The sweetness from that, just going off the list you were saying from the history point of view, the dryness Rob was talking about, I'm getting kind of a cross between molasses and treacle, that kind of real bitter, earthy sweetness, as opposed to something burnt and caramelized and roasted. Really, I think it's on the nose is playing off the malt. On the palate, I think it's playing more off the corn in the small batch. Is that drier, higher kind of alcohol pulling the flavors forward?
It's very dry. It's very dry. Even if you go back to the 2020, which I did. So now again, talking like the stout versus stout, the 2020 a lot more chocolate, but the 2017 very dry finish, like super.
Yeah.
Hopping to the 2020, it's confectionery sweet kind of chocolate, confectionery sweet kind of milk duds, creamy milk chocolate, without being overly sugary. That kind of your powdered hot chocolate, that kind of confectionery sweetness to it. But once you hop back to the 2017, the first one, it just shows how dry the porter style is coming through, or the stout style is coming through.
Yeah, I would say we because obviously it was one of our first collaborations, the 2017. There was a few there, but obviously early days, you don't want to go too far. But I think now, especially nowadays, Teeling Whiskey, we're confident enough to really kind of allow that collaborative influence to take a little bit of a center stage. We're confident enough that tasting these blind, you might not even there's no core DNA or core recipe to speak of. It's more what is a premium Irish whiskey that's influenced by porter or by imperial stout. And with this 2020 batch, you can see a lot more influence from that 200 fathoms.
Yeah. Much more kind of, I'm getting a lot more milk and dark chocolate coming through with the 2020, as opposed to like maybe a dry cocoa powder, cacao nibs in the 2017. So it kind of developed like that kind of dry and bitter chocolate flavor, whereas this is more kind of milky to dark chocolate coming through.
And on number 2, you're going for on the palate a lot more of that malt characteristic coming forward.
Yeah.
The stout itself is just carrying that malt forward. It's bringing that sweetness up to the fore. It's bringing that kind of creamy texture. You really feel it on the side of your cheeks. The first one was more the roof of your mouth, the tongue itself. The second one is more the sides of your mouth. It's really starting to pucker. There's a little bit of nice spice at the back of that. I don't know if that's the stout itself, if it's the malt or just a combination. There's a really nice spice to it. It's opening up a little bit more than the first one. It's hitting a little bit more senses.
Well, Chris, do me a favor. After you've gone like back and forth those two stouts, go back to small batch now. Like you see like a lot of that dryness and a lot of that kind of dry cocoa and confectionery and dark chocolate just not there in small batch.
No. It's honestly, like every time I go back to small batch, I can't believe it's actually the same whiskey with just a slight extra finish over. Like it blows my mind every time I go back to it, saying how much of a difference. Like, I mean, the DNA is still there, but the influence just being there for 6 months is quite significant on the palate and on the flavor.
Well, that's it. If you were to take 7 or 6 different brands that all have been influenced by some form of a stout or some form of beer, and you put them side by side, you're going to have different percentages, you're going to have different mash bills, you're going to have different combinations of grain or malt or pot still or anything like that. The fact that these are the exact same percentage, they're the exact same DNA going into all the casks, it is a building block, and it really does show what the actual finish does taste like. Especially go across all the collaborations that they've done, whether you're talking about the different styles of rums, different styles of wines, different styles of fortified wines. Once you have that core going in, you can actually genuinely tell, even with the 2 stouts side by side, this one is really dry style, next one is a really kind of confectionery, sweeter style. And it really does show it off.
It really does. It really does.
Well, that's a thing as well. Not only are we looking to create these unique and interesting influences in Teeling whiskey or in Irish whiskey, but it's also learning something as well. Like we were talking behind the scenes there earlier, Adrian, about different things coming forward and different bits and pieces coming forward. It is like building that repertoire of flavor. Like a chef needs to taste all the ingredients. So if they want to cook something new, and they're tasting as they go along, like spices, for example. Tasting as they go along, they want to know where to go to find that missing flavor. We were talking about, say that Teeling was doing an Irish rye in future. You distill it and you get happy with the distillate. It's all about what cask. What cask do you then put it in? The same went through our pot still. We made the pot still that we're happy with, and then it was a discussion of, okay, what cask do we put this in? Same with the peated. So again, you make the whiskey and you wait. It's not just the whiskey industry is not just put it in ex-bourbon casks and wait a couple of years to see what happens and how we adapt that. It's
exactly,
we have a lovely distillate here that we've picked the right yeast strain for. We've picked the cuts and we've double distilled it or we've triple distilled it. We've got the mash bill ratio right. What cask best exemplifies the work that has gone into this distillate? And it's a trial and error process, but hopefully years and years have gone into discovering what each of these different casks do to Irish whiskey, and by using that same blend, we are really discovering what each of these different influences does and how it affects Irish whiskey.
I just want to know quickly which the guys you prefer. Do you prefer the 2017 or do you tend to go with 2020? Like for me, it's really hard to choose between. I don't know which one will I pick if I had to sit down with it. But if I'm leaning towards, I'd probably go with 2020, just because it's just a little bit more rounder. Like you get just a little extra sweetness as opposed to that big bold dryness you get in the 2017. But that's just me. I'd happily sit with both of them, to be honest.
This could be the first topic ever someone prefers 2020 to anything else.
Exactly. Yeah, this is probably the best example of what could happen in 2020.
I was going to say I am disappointed that I'm picking 2020 only because I enjoy it so much it's making me want a pint.
Good. That's a good complaint. This is actually February 2020, so the COVID didn't kick in just yet then when it was bottled. So
I wish I had a pint of Guinness or a pint of stout to go with this whiskey.
Okay, what we'll do is I'll hop over to the bar and you just have to put your hand to the side of the screen.
Yeah,
and then we pull it out of nowhere.
I don't have my background here. My running joke of normally I've got the stills behind me. I'm like, you want to see how Teeling whiskey's made? And then just pull
There's
the whiskey out. It always lands.
Yeah, no, it is a really interesting stout. I think that it really does show its colors in this whiskey, but still it doesn't take away anything from the original small batch, which is also great. I think the 200 Fathoms was a great pairing, and myself and Chris, we did a bottle share of the cask strength version of the 200 Fathoms. That was released in 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was 2016. It was a
we did that.
6-year-old, fully matured in X Stout, and it was absolutely delicious.
Sublime. If I could ask you to do something for us, it would be amazing if you could do a cask strength version of 200 fathoms or some sort of an imperial stout. You can pass it on to Alex or any other guys, because it was fantastic. That 2016 cask strength 200 fathoms was unbelievable.
Yeah, the thing about that one was it was 2 or 3 years worth of different brands trying to showcase beer, specifically stout. And each time they were doing it, whether it was a bottling percentage between 40 and 46 or a cask strength version, each one of them were doing justice to a chocolate note or justice to a coffee note or justice to some aspect that you would associate with porter or stout. But that specific bottling just hit every layer, everything you could think of where you said the word stout or porter, from creaminess to spiciness to a little bit of spice to the different chocolate types, coffee types, etc. It was hitting each one of the avenues.
Yeah, it was really tasty. I mean, there's nothing wrong with these, but yeah, that cask strength really kind of amplified all those beer flavors even more. It was a stunning job. I think I actually showed up on an Irish whiskey auction the last time I was looking. I don't know what it sold for, but yeah, if you manage to get your hands on one, it's one to crack open. It's not the one to keep away tucked under a blanket, because it really is stunning.
Really makes you want to try number 3.
Yeah, it really makes you want to try number 3. Absolutely. Number 3 is that's the chocolate porter. So that was the collaboration you had with Guinness from Lithuania. Mm-hmm. So the guys in Lithuania actually saying it's the closest thing you can get to Lithuanian whiskey, because obviously they, as far as I know, they don't make whiskey just yet. Maybe down the line they will. You never know. But yeah, it was that was probably the next two are probably the hardest one to find. It took me quite some time to find the two to add it to this tasting. The chocolate porter that they do, I think, was at 8.6%. They were using the chocolate malt, which is not as heavy roasted as the black malt. It's a little bit lighter, but still has a lot of those deeper flavors that you'd expect from kind of a heavily roasted malt. It is though much sweeter. Like when you will have these two side by side, you'll definitely see a big difference. Obviously, there's some sort of peated components in this as well, which actually is very interesting in this. It does kind of sit there. But yeah, the chocolate porter, it was a limited release that they've done. I'm not sure how many bottles they had of the beer itself, but as far as I remember, you sent either 10 or a dozen casks to them, and they filled half and half with peated porter and the other half with chocolate porter. I think it was 6 month age, was it?
Yes, yeah. So it was matured for the Lithuanian chocolate porter was 6 months roughly. It was a collaboration with Guinness, in Lithuania, and it was limited to about 1,800 bottles of this.
1,800.
1,800.
Okay, so quite rare. I actually didn't know it was that rare.
You still would have opened it.
I still would have opened it. Doesn't matter. It's for drinking anyway. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. But yeah, it's that's one of the rarer ones. If you manage to have one or manage to score one, they're not easy to come by. They are quite rare.
And the next taste will definitely tell you if it's worth opening or if it's worth
exactly.
Opening.
Exactly. This is why we do this. But this is why we do this. We want you to taste them before you buy them.
Well, I'm glad that you chose this order, Adrian, because it does make a nice progression from the last one, because it's almost kind of taken that confectionery dark chocolate kind of chocolateness from the Irish stout, but it's kind of a little bit of a 90-degree turn. Like, is it? Yeah. Like it's a lot spicier. Like the dark forest.
No, go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, like, they're both the names, the chocolate porter and the dark forest, both somewhat apt in this scenario. Like, I definitely get chocolate, not so much as the Galway based outs, but yeah, like a lot of kind of piney, kind of grassiness from this dark forest influence, which I'm sure is just a name, but I think it's very apt.
The chocolate that I was getting is I don't know if you've ever had the dessert Death by Chocolate, where when they're cooking it, they put powdered chocolate over top of it and it kind of burns into it.
Yeah.
And not quite burnt chocolate, but you can tell it's kind of on the turn. That's kind of the style of chocolate you're getting from it. It's because it's powdered chocolate, it's almost drying out your mouth. But when you take it,
yeah, but there's enough sweetness in the back that kind of brings you back in the normally. Yeah,
it's almost the best of both worlds. Out of the first two, you get the dryness and you're getting that confectionery kind of hit, but they're bringing it together. And as you said, the spicy note that's kind of intermingling in it is almost not quite a bacon spice for me, but cooking spice.
Cooking spice, yes.
A spice that you would put in a dessert as opposed to something you would put in a Christmas cake or pudding. Or
maybe like nutmeg with cinnamon and something else mixed together.
Yeah,
kind of playing on those flavors.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just
noticed
very
interesting on the nose. There's something I'm getting. I just can't put my finger on it just yet. Something. I don't know what is it now. Not a herbal note, but
there's like a hint of menthol or something.
Yeah, maybe it's that. Like I'm getting some sort of a like.
Does anyone in the comments feel free to share?
Yeah,
I just noticed the comments there. Chris, did you comment on in your own video?
I commented on Ryan's downstairs. We're upstairs. He's saying hello.
Poor Ryan unfortunately has to work because we're planning on having him with us as well because obviously his beer knowledge will be a little bit better. But unfortunately, he has to run the place. So place downstairs is still open. So he's working away.
No, he's just shy.
But yeah,
first nose of the thing, that kind of, I can see where you're coming with the menthol. I was getting more kind of, the anise you get from an apricot kind of kernel, that kind of pith.
I think
the sweetness of anise as opposed to the sweetness of menthol. But on the second nose, I can see where you're coming with the kind of mint and menthol.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said it now, more of a star anise kind of vibe. But like star anise kind of has that a slight kind of fresh mental waft, a little bit at the start anyway of the smell anyway. So it's like kind of sitting between the two a little bit, if that makes sense. But yeah.
But again, like going back to small batch, it's such a different whiskey.
Yeah. Like. No, I don't know. Like I am genuinely amazed every time I go back to it. It's just such an evolution. Like it's so sweet. Like the small batch and stuff is so sweet.
Yeah.
On the nose, and this is just so dry that like the contrast is smashing. I really enjoy it. I really do.
So yeah, I liked these two. These were a bit of a rarity. Like these released way back when I think I remember going to Lithuania around that time, and it was still a little bit of a novel thing to do these collaborations. We'd done a couple, but going to this was allocated to Lithuania, Belgium, Poland, Holland. It's like all places that I hadn't really been before or had no plan to go, and then luckily get to go there and see the appetite for not only Irish whiskey but something new in Irish whiskey was really special. And luckily we had a pretty good partner in Guinness that took me out and made sure I didn't remember Lithuania very well.
Yeah, Lithuanians can put you under the table. They're a rare breed. They're a rare breed. Good guys, but rare breed. Always have fun. I was amazed what kind of styles they're doing. When I was obviously doing research, I briefly looked at their site, and they're doing a couple of really interesting collaborations, one of which really stood out to me. Like I think they've done it recently. They did I think it was a stout aged in a Lafroig barrel, so that would be very interesting to try.
So they're very adventurous over there. So our partner in Lithuania, who put us in touch with Guinness, it's I'm not even going to try pronounce the name of their store, but it's an off license, a whiskey bar, cocktail bar, and a distributor. But they recently took one of our barrels and they barrel age coffee. So they've got a whiskey barrel age coffee in Lithuania, and a friend of ours got in touch, got a sample of it, and apparently it's amazing. So I'm going to have to track that down.
Are you planning on doing more with Guinness in the future, or is that kind of a once-off thing for the moment?
I mean, Yeah, I never say never. I never say never.
never.
We're always looking for new and exciting things. Like just for example, we're starting to travel again. The distillery's open again, which is great, and that means visitors. So there is a visitor coming soon. I'm not gonna say anyone, but there's a visitor of a different spirits category visiting our distillery soon. And I said it to Alex. I was like, Alex, such and such is coming. I'm going to take them on a tour. I think the only question out of his head was, can we get their casks?
That's a good answer. That's a good question. Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, I'll ask.
Great. No, like, I mean, you've been very adventurous lately. Like we were talking beforehand, you've done the Amburana cask in your Wonders of Wood. Like, so there's always something down the pipeline that you have there that obviously at the moment is a secret, but when it comes out, people are blown away of like how exotic it can get. And well, you're kind of embraced it extremely well, and like it is your signature at the moment, in my opinion anyways, your signature that you're the experimenting guys, the mad scientists of sort.
Well, that's the thing. It was always there, but we just didn't really share it all that often because, again, like from my own perspective, the Amburana is a great example because I would only get to show it off when I got the very rare opportunity to bring people to the warehouse. You know, Chris, again, you know, lucky enough to come with me on one occasion, and we'd drill it, and I would just say, like, it's so different. It doesn't hit the chords of what people assume Irish whiskey to be. And it was always, you know, like if this went to a market like Ohio or something like that, huge market for Irish whiskey, if the average person reached on a shelf and they reached towards a bottle that said Irish whiskey and missed the words gin cask or Amburana, they're going to probably compare it to what they deem Irish whiskey to be.
Yeah.
And it can be a dangerous thing. They can go, oh, this Teeling Company, they don't know how to make Irish whiskey, missing that this is a limited release or, you know, something like that. So it was a little dangerous. So I personally didn't think Amburana, I think I sold it to you, Chris. I was like, I don't think Amburana is going to see the light of day for a while. Like, it's super different. But that's
September 18, I think, is when I was in with you.
Exactly. But that's I guess the one
remember the date. You're like a computer.
Yes, yeah. Photographic memory, but that is the one
day. It was September.
But that's the one beneficial thing about lockdown is that we've had a tremendous response. A few people in the comments there, I think Dave's in there, huge tremendous response to some of these tastings, and it's been great. It's, you know, it's kind of liberating, but it's nice to kind of show people what's going on behind the curtain and get a bit of a sense and help us kind of sway, because like Alex has said before, I think we're a little close to it. So you get too attached to certain things and not others, and you get in your own head like I did about the Amburana. I'm like, oh no, people won't enjoy it. I enjoy it, but I'm a weirdo. And then I mean, Amburana was undoubtedly the popular from that Wonders of Wood tasting. So we got a tremendous amount of love from that and positive energy from that one. So yeah, we did Wonders of Wood too, and we're doing this not your run of the mill tasting in July too, which is unique mash
Sounds
bills.
very interesting. I think I'm going to buy a ticket. Yeah, I think I'm going to buy a ticket myself.
You also have the fact that, as you were saying, like small batches in 80 different countries, and what we will see. Social media will obviously stretch further than what we see on a shelf. The likes of, you did Aquavit for the Swedish or the Nordic market. You have vermouth aged casks that if you brought to one market, they wouldn't understand. You bring to the next. You have Crystal Roy gin casks, huge amount of juniper. It makes sense to a bartender. It makes sense to certain markets, especially Scandinavian markets. You put it on an Irish shelf, as you said, when you see the words Irish whiskey. If you go to taste something that is heavy in juniper and you don't know what Geneva is, or you don't know what the gin is outside
it could be a bad experience rather than a good experience.
Yeah, but it's something that to somebody who understands the category or how far they're trying to push the envelope, it's something that can win awards and be really appreciated. To the next person who just wants to drink a whiskey and Coke, there's something wrong with my Coke, because my Irish whiskey should look like Irish whiskey. So obviously there's something wrong with my Coke.
And that's the thing. There are a lot of those people. There are a lot of those people that drink Irish whiskey to mix it with Coke, and that's sure. I mean, go nuts. But they're driving the growth of the category. All power to them. It's great to see. But yeah, again, like it's such a broad spectrum of people flocking to Irish whiskey that we're, trying to play to everybody and play to our strengths, and it's fun, but it's scary.
Do you want to knock out number 4 and then we take a break?
Yes. So yeah, we're going to go to number 4, which is the peated Baltic Imperial Peated Baltic Porter. It's a mouthful. So Imperial goes for the strength, which is usually in and around 10%, or where it usually was back in the day. As far as I remember, the Catherine the Great Imperial Baltic Porter was 9.5%. And there was some small component of peated black malt, as far as I remember. If you go on Genny's site, you can click on the bottle, and it actually gives you a full breakdown of what grains they've used in the whole mash bill. So they're quite open on what they've used. There was quite a number of different ones. I didn't remember all of them, but there's like 6 or 7 different barley. That was different styles that were blended together.
You'll also see the word Imperial appear a hell of a lot more these days, because you're doing, like Teeling's, you're doing a cask exchange. So you're giving a cask that has whiskey still in the grain across. Once the porter goes in there, which usually is straight away, it's going to soak some of that whiskey out, which is going to bring the ABV higher straight away. And then by the time it comes back, the stout is in the cask. You're obviously going to have a lot of flavor in it. The whiskey's going to bring the ABV back up. But once the cask arrives in the brewery, there's still ABV content inside the wood, so straight away you're going to be bringing it up, which is fantastic. You get that flavor exchange, which obviously we can see from the first treat.
Absolutely.
Number 4.
Yeah. This is quite bold on the nose. Like, I mean,
you wouldn't say naughty, but you say bold.
Yeah, it's quite bold.
It's okay.
It's funny. It's funny to think back at a time where this was the most peated thing that Teeling had.
Where you couldn't talk about the word peat when it came to the 24-year-old, the 21-year-old. If you said it at that point in time,
it scared people away.
And yet they would sit down there and go, "There's so many layers and so much longevity to this, and it's amazing. What is your secret?" It's that thing. It's that dirty little secret we can't talk about. That's maybe what he's called it bold, because it's that thing that's there, that it's not so much a flavor profile as in an extension to draw out the flavors, create layers in between. And that's why peat and blends is absolutely amazing. Bold, there's nothing medicinal about it at all. I don't know if it's the beer itself, if it's the malt in the small batch. There's too much sweetness going on for there to be that bitter, smoky, medicinal side of peat. But it's just rounding it off, and it's really extending it.
It's like I'm getting like a ginger spice rather than.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But yeah, I just agree.
That was the ginger hitting.
It was the ginger, I was like, oh yeah. One of those ones you're like, oh, I can't put my finger on it. Oh yeah, he just said it. Okay,
yeah, it's like the smoke and the turfy aspect of peat, which you'd expect, it kind of turned into like this ginger spice. And maybe even when you use powdered ginger or dry ginger, you get that kind of little bit of a dusty feeling to it. That's what I'm kind of getting with this.
Yeah, the kind of sweetness in the background is more kind of crystallized ginger sweets as opposed to gingerbread.
That's it. Crystallized ginger. That's it. It's like sweet but also spicy at the same time.
This one just has to be hit upon. Shane McCarthy in the comments saying that he added the off-the-cuff chocolate bitters to the last porter, and I can see that combination just being dragged and dragged. Yeah,
I mean, there's a little bit left, and maybe enough for an old-fashioned with chocolate bitters at the end. Who knows? It sounds like a very tempting proposition to mix the two together. Absolutely. Yeah, that Peter Porter, I really would like to try it on its own as a beer in itself. Obviously, that's been long gone. These were bottles the 9th of 2018, so you'd probably sent them barrels either at the end of 2017, start of 2018. Yeah, so they're long gone, unfortunately.
Before Paddy's Day, at least.
Yeah. So they're long gone. I'd say. But I'd love to see the difference or see the similarities with the beer in itself. But yeah, this one is so interesting. Like that peat turning into that ginger spice. I didn't expect that whatsoever. I was expecting a little bit more kind of maybe not a Lafroy kind of thing, but maybe like a light peat, something that you somewhat get in the black pits. That's what I was expecting, but yeah, no, it's nowhere near that.
Well, that's it.
Whatsoever.
If you at no point in time said the word peat, there could be people here screaming and shouting at the TV. There's an aspect to this that you just can't put your finger on, and it's kind of like adding salt and pepper to a dish. You don't exactly taste the salt and pepper; you're just highlighting everything else that's in there.
Kieran in the comments getting citrus and honey.
I'm getting that citrus note as well. Like,
okay, we're getting whiskey, citrus, honey, and ginger. I'm craving a penicillin.
I was literally going to say, this
penicillin.
would make a good penicillin.
Mm.
This would make a banging penicillin.
Okay, you've got a chocolate old fashioned with the last one. You got penicillin with this one. Where are we going with number 5?
We'll see. We'll see where it takes us. We'll come up with a cocktail.
That's the thing. Like
can't penicillin by any chance, Rob?
We'll see. I made 3 options. So I made 3 variations and I put them to Jack and Stephen and let them decide which one that they preferred. And to be honest, they were all pretty good. Jack said he liked all 3, but I think the clear favorite was the blood orange. So yeah, maybe we'll do a different run next time. We'll see. But
that's it. The blood orange smash has been a hit on your distillery menu for quite a while now, and
it has. Yeah, it has.
You can see the words blood orange and the words passion fruit. It doesn't matter what the flavor combination is. All across the world, they always will sell because they're unique, they're exotic, that kind of flavor point.
It'd be like a porn star martini, yeah. I can't wait for those. Oh, I can't wait for those. I'm still not back yet, so I'm still in that mood where I can make fun of it. But then, like, the next week,
I've made 38 so far today.
Even frozen daiquiris. yeah, they're always fun.
53.
53. Yeah.
We'll take 1 or 2. 51. Yay.
Okay. This is so far, I think, my favorite. Let us know in the comments which one do you prefer so far.
Yes, Colin, ginger like a Spice Girl.
Like a Spice Girl, that's it. Yeah, let us know in the comments which is so far your favorite out of the 4. So like we've experienced pretty much all the spectrums of porters and stouts so far.
And if you can rate them 1 to 4 from scary spice to sporty spice, we already know the ginger spice. So just try to find out.
Oh yes.
Small batches is babies. That's baby spice. None of them are English. That's not Union Jack. That's not Jerry.
Not Jerry. Actually,
I grew up in the 90s. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Shall we take a short break?
Yeah, I mean, give everyone a chance to go to the bathroom, and sure, if anyone wants to hang around and ask questions, feel free.
Lorcan, you're very welcome. No problems at all. And enjoy your piss break.
Yeah, so Chris, you're leaving us at the moment, yeah?
I gotta run back to work and make more.
He has to run back to work, unfortunately. So Chris is now going to join us for the second half, but he's been a great sport. He ran halfway through town just to get here. There was whiskey involved, so I mean, he put on his lightning shoes on, and he was here within 3 minutes flat. So we're lucky to have him just at least for most of it. But yeah, thank you, Chris, for
it's getting to the point where Rob is now 90% beard. I have to see him before it disappears.
Yeah.
And you're getting longer and longer.
I'm getting longer, but like my sides don't grow out.
I'm only here to show the perspective of what not happens.
So yeah, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to grab the beer at the end, which I have in the fridge. And yeah, we're back in about 5 minutes. So yeah, take a quick break. Thank you, Chris, once again. Enjoy work. Enjoy making porn star martinis.
Earphones in my ears while I'm making drinks.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, back in 5, guys.
Good to see you, Chris.
Okay. And we're back. Down one. But we'll finish it off, Rob. I think Chris would be proud of us finishing it off without him.
He's listening, so we'll only trash talk him a little bit.
A little bit. You can probably see him running down. Yeah, he's running down the road like madman. It's actually raining, so it's even worse. Oh my God, he's going to be all drenched. He's going to have loads of fun at work. I think I'll visit him after, see how he's at. Bring him some samples.
Order a porn star martini for me.
Absolutely. So we're moving on to the number 6, which is the Amber Ale. So that was the newest release that you've done. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't available in Ireland as far as I know, because I got it from France or Switzerland.
It went to European markets, yeah. So a lot of European markets. And this was one of our collaborations with Dot Brew. I think you stiffed me on that one. So it went to European markets, so France, Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, Netherlands. A lot of our European markets where they love a little bit of Teeling whiskey.
Do you divide the markets in a specific way of where different whiskeys are going, or is it just like what do you feel will be best for specific market or specific country? Is that how you decide? Because you mentioned that the whiskeys finished in beers from Lithuania was more Eastern Europe, and then the Amber Ale was kind of more Western Europe. Is there do you have a kind of a rule, or is it just whatever you feel that's?
It's a bit of both. Yeah, it's a bit of both. Okay. So in the case of, say, the Lithuania, or even a better example is the Riesling cast that we did for Germany.
Yeah,
that was a direct partnership with our German importer. So a man by the name of Michael in Germany, he imports Teeling and does a lot of work with Teeling in Germany. His friend, very close friend, ran a German Riesling producer. They put us in touch, and we got to chatting, and we tasted their Riesling, and they tasted our whiskey, and the relationship built, and that obviously evolved into our German Riesling finish. Mm-hmm. So that one was specifically for Germany because of how much our German partner was involved in the creation of that collaboration. And that is similar in some of the other collaborations. Obviously, with the Amber Ale, it's our collaboration with Dot Brew. And it was a little bit different because obviously Dot Brew is based in Dublin. We're based in Dublin, or Dot Brew is based in Ireland anyway. It was conceived, and we had the casks. It was 12 months inside the Amber Ale casks, and obviously this was around 2020. It released last year, and you've got these products in the pipeline, and you're planning to release them. Last year put a bit of a halt on the planned releases of some of the stuff that we were going to release.
Yeah,
and markets like Belgium and places like that have an understanding of Amber Ale and have been asking for whiskeys finished in more than just stouts and porters and things like that. They clambered over it. They're like, yes, we 100% want that. We want all of that. So it was less about, okay, how do we market this and how do we, unveil this and do launches and things like that in lockdown era. It was like it was sold before it even, hits the shelves, before it even hits the country. They're like, yes, 100%. We wanted something like this. So yeah, it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of forward thinking. In the whiskey industry, you've got to think, months, years in advance, and plan these things. And sometimes you get lucky, and markets are like calling out for something that you had already planned to release or have had planned to release. So yeah, very, very lucky with this one. So
cheers. And this was the one that I actually couldn't find the exact beer, because usually it's quite easy to find the beer that was used, but this one was a little bit harder to find. I couldn't find the actual beer that was used for these barrels, but from what I've seen, Dot Brew does like batched aged beer in your barrels, and they tend to mix them together as well. So they mix the previous batch, they leave some behind, and they'll mix it with the new batch and put it together. But they also do the experiment with different things as well, because I from the research I've done, I've seen that the last one, I think, was batch 7, if I'm not mistaken, and they actually used some peated malt as well in there into that last batch, but the previous batches didn't. So it was quite interesting to see. Like usually with all the rest of them, you know the exact specific beer, like 200 fathoms. You know it's 200 fathoms, or this. A little bit harder to pinpoint exactly what it was, which is actually good as well, because like I mean, if you've obviously, oops, I think I disconnected myself. 1 second.
No, you're okay. You might not be able to hear me, but I'll crack on. So yeah, this was the collaboration with Dot Brewery. They make
There we go. Sorry.
batch. Yeah, you're okay. I just cracked on with some of the stuff that Dot Brew do. So yeah, like Adrian was saying, Dot Brew, very very creative brewery, making a lot of different stuff. Like there's elements of the birthday batch, the rum red dark.
Yes,
and
that's it.
The few other bits and pieces from those guys. Like I said, Shane from Dot Brew's I was on the phone to him today. Literally has been more than helpful with everything that we do. Obviously, he helped me create the canned cocktails that we've talked about throughout this. Shane from Dot Brew, brilliant guy to work with. So yeah, this is like probably my favorite of the evening so far. Really.
I have to say that, but so far this is probably the closest one to the standard small batch. It's much closer than the other 4 we've tasted so far. It has that rum sweetness still there, quite visible in comparison to the original small batch. But there is some kind of a sweet malty element that you'd expect in an ale, in a red ale, to be specific.
Yeah, it's super lovely.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's actually a blend of 3 different red ales.
A blend of 3 different red ales. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't pinpoint the specific beer from these casks, but yeah, our core blend goes into these casks for about 12 months. So yeah, it's a significant impact.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you have a 12-month finish on this rather than a usual 6 months that we've seen so far? Was it caused by the pandemic and that's why it stayed in the cask for longer, or was it because the flavor impact after 6 months wasn't sufficient enough?
No, that's the thing. I say till I'm blue in the face that the Teeling is a flavor focused company, and yeah, I've seen it where we have a release schedule and there's a date set, and literally the whiskey is not ready yet. Like it doesn't get the sign off from Jack and Alex and Stephen. Like one of the best parts of Teeling whiskey is that sign off meeting. I've luckily enough got to try one of them where literally, the heads of the company sit down and taste every whiskey before they release it. And if it's not ready, then it sits on a shelf for another kind of 6 months, and it gets a lot of people stressed. Because you've said this is coming soon, and I've gone out there and let the secrets drop and been an idiot and tell people what's coming. And
I think every brand ambassador had an issue with that they've said something too early.
But yeah, like if it's ready, it's ready, and it's not, it's not. That's the simple fact. That's what it boils down to. So yeah, sometimes they're sitting there for 6 months, and sometimes they'll hang around. They'll have to wait a little bit longer, and when they're ready, we're happy to put the Phoenix on, and Jack's happy to put his signature on the bottle. Then that's when they get released. So
there's one question I really always wanted to ask.
Yes.
Why is it Jack's signature, not Stephen's, or other way around? Is there a reason?
I think it just simply goes to the older brother.
Was it rock, paper, scissors?
Jack's the older brother. Jack is
okay.
That's how it works. Jack's the older brother. Jack's the managing director.
Right.
So yeah, it just comes down to Jack being the eldest. I mean, if it came down to me and my younger brother, I think it'd have to be my signature on there too.
Absolutely, I'd fight to death, I think, for my signature. Luckily, my surname is much funnier, so I look hilarious on the bottle. Maybe down the line, you never know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is so different to
I get a lot
the
more of the
other-
amber ale on the nose,
yeah,
like that kind of. I'm trying to
malty
think of like
sweetness. I can't even, not like
Like a-
treacle, but like
but definitely a red ale. Like there's a red ale kind of maltiness there. Like again, this one's another one that wants me. I really want to have a beer now.
yeah.
Mm.
So I got this bottle because as Kieran, I think in the comments said that was a big sell. It would be a big sell here. You can actually get it into Ireland quite easily. There's a shop called, now I'm probably going to butcher the name, Le Comptoir Irlandais. It's
Oh
French.
yeah, Le Comte Irlandais. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I think that's where I got the bottle, and they package it really nicely. They use like all recyclable materials. So like the one bottle came in this huge box, all stuck with cardboard, so it was all recyclable. And they send you a sample of Barry's tea as well with every Irish whiskey. So it was quite nice, quite a nice little touch. And they send you a postcard as well that I can ship over with a picture of famous landmarks in Ireland. So they kind of embraced the whole Irishness quite well, especially with the Barry's tea. That was kind of a nice surprise to find that in the box. But yeah, that was a 12,000 bottle release. Am I right to say that?
7,800.
7,800. So they have it wrong on their site. Because I think on their site it's at 12,000. So yeah, I think they're still available. If anyone would like to get a bottle, I think this is smashing. I think I'm going to order a second bottle, to be honest, because I really enjoy this, and it's still there. So like the other ones, they're kind of yes. Kieran, I'll send you a link at the end, and you'll be able to.
I'll see if I can find Le Comte d'Irlandais. Chris Hayes, our European brand ambassador, did a tasting with them there recently. There we go. Let's see if I can circumnavigate their French website to a Teeling product.
But yeah, it's really good. Too bad there was a release for European market, but to be honest, we're quite spoiled for Teeling's releases here that are not available in Ireland as well, in different parts of the world. So I think you can't get them all, to be honest. It has to be some sort of a division. But usually, if it's released within Europe, it's not awfully hard to get them, unless they sell out very quickly and then they're not there anymore. But until they're there, they usually, if it's within the EU, it's not that hard. Obviously, UK is a different story now, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, there we go. I wonder if I'll get in trouble for sharing that link.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, we have it there. So yeah, if any of you want to buy it, guys, it's still available. I think it's very tasty. Cocktail wise, would like to see in that. I think it will work well in a nice highball. I think it has enough body.
I personally wouldn't do too much to it. I think this one would be my sipper, but
it is a sipping whiskey, in fairness.
But a bit blasphemous. I'd actually enjoy this hot. I think I enjoy this in a hot whiskey. With minimal added spice. I think I just enjoy this like lovely and warm, like a cup of tea. I think I'm blasphemous in saying that, but yeah, I think I would like that. If I can't drink it,
cloves would ruin it. Just a
little
slice of lemon, no cloves.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. That would be quite nice. Yeah, absolutely. Really tasty. Okay. Comparing that maybe to the small batch.
Oh yes, let's do
Sorry.
that.
Yeah, as I was saying before, it's much closer. It's how'd you say it? Like the last four were like cousins, where this is like a half brother, half sister kind of vibe. It's much closer. It's still not. It still doesn't feel entirely the same, but it feels much closer. Like these are like kind of more distant cousins, where this is like a half brother maybe, or a half sister. So that's kind of a vibe I'm getting.
Kieran's just let us know there that it's out of stock. Apologies. Let me do a bit of research and figure out where that is.
I think I've seen it in one or two more shops. I'll do my due diligence at the end after the tasting. If I can find it, I'll certainly send the link. Too bad. I that's where I got mine anyway, and too bad it's out of stock. But yeah, they must have been flying like hotcakes because it wasn't available for that long. I think it was a little over a month, maybe a month and a half or so. So yeah, it proves to be quite popular, which is great to see. Could you maybe hint us what's down the pipeline with Dot Brew? Because obviously you said it's a new partnership. I'm not trying to get you in trouble any way, shape, or form. I'd say the lads are listening, but if you can tell us something, it would be great. If not, it's okay.
There's nothing with Dot Brew in the immediate pipeline. We do have casks from them, but nothing planned this year. There's a few other companies that we've worked with in the past.
Okay.
We have
beer or wine or.
There's a few other companies that we've worked with in the past that we have cast from that we got a couple of years back. That keep an eye out on our social media.
Okay.
And you'll see a little bit more from them.
Timeline: this month, next month, 2 months time, 3 months time, 4 months time.
Again, how long is a piece of string? We're planning a tasting. So there's the not your run of the mill tasting in July, which is the mash bills. Then we're planning a collaborative tasting in September. So keep an eye out. In September, you should taste a few examples of some of the collaborations from both ends. Of the companies in September. That's as far as I can go on that one. I mean, in talks.
Perfect. I think that's good enough for most to keep an eye out. Somewhat September, October. There'll be something brewing at the end. Exactly. Yeah, so that's great. Great to see. As I said, you've been very experimental, like the mad scientist, and it's always exciting to check your social media because usually there's something new coming out, and you've been very upfront with things, and you've done quite a lot of work, and like you release things left, right, and center. It's really hard to keep up, especially for collectors. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, like trying to collect some of the ranges, like. People, fighting over the bottles, like the Brabazon series. I remember I was a big stir over that. People couldn't get the bottles, and then obviously your pot stills, which I actually did manage to collect the first 3 batches, because after that you kind of went into like a more generic recipe. It wasn't batches anymore because you had with the pot still.
The pot still, yeah. Well, that's a whole nother story. Like I briefly mentioned it earlier. We thought we were doing something by inviting people to see the evolution of the pot still. We knew it was never going to be, batch 1, batch 2, batch 3. It made sense to look at it, from an outside perspective and see them as chapters in a story that will never be told again. But at the time, it was hard to convey that message live. It was just like, So I think it was a nice to do. It's good to see the progression and how it evolved, but it does go back to the question of we had this lovely pot still distillate, and it was okay. What casks should this go into, and for how long? What casks best exemplify this mash bill, that is uniquely Irish, and we want to see grow. And the key kind of thing was we need it to be distinctly Teeling and distinctly not anyone else.
But still keeping that pot still mind frame, which is exactly very engraved within Irish whiskey anyway.
It is very ingrained. So that was the thing. Like I had a couple of heated discussions with certain people about people comparing Teeling pot still to Redbreast and Powers John's Lane. I'm like, that's the one thing that we don't want to do. That's not that's not beneficial to the pot still category, just producing something similar to another company's. output. It's like, my go-to comment was, you don't compare Auchentoshan to Ardbeg just because they both say single malt. We want to see that same amount of diversity in single pot still. So you try and create something different and new, and you will ultimately draw people that love it, and people that don't love it, which is unfortunate, but it's part of the growing process.
That's the name of the game. I have the 3, so maybe down the line we'll do some sort of a pot still tasting. I'd love to taste them side by side. I have the batch 1, 2, and 3, and obviously there'll be more pot stills coming out down the pipeline. So if we score the bottles, we'll definitely put together some sort of a pot still Teeling's tasting, because I would like to see the progression. As Ryan mentioned, the progression is quite interesting as he got to taste all of them. So down the line, I definitely would love to do something like that as well.
And that's the thing. The people that did our Wonders of Wood 2, they saw the offshoots of that experiment. So anyone that didn't get into the batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, or that whole kind of buy into that whole kind of story of progression, but did the Wonders of Wood, they saw the ones that didn't make it into the batches, and obviously they've spent a little bit more time in cask, and we're kind of discovering. For me, that virgin Portuguese oak, that really aggressive influence, it has a place somewhere.
Okay.
We're yet to be determined what that place
Figure
is.
out where is the right place for it.
Yeah. Is it a finish? Do you just put it in a pot still into that for a little bit of time, or do you do a sort of reverse finish where you start in those casks and then move it,
build on top of it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where we're thinking right now. Is can you do a reverse finish? And maybe start with something impactful and then soften it out with something that's less impactful.
Yeah. No, that'd be very interesting to see. And as I said, you've been very good with experimenting like that and kind of paving the way for maybe other distilleries to try new things that maybe a bit unorthodox, than maybe something that you usually don't see in the Irish whiskey category. So it's always great to see these crazy experiments, and I'd like to see that finish at the start and then aging at the end. I think it surprised a lot of people, and obviously that the Portuguese wood that you're saying, that it sounds very, very tempting. Very tempting.
Well, another one was the gin cask that we did. Chris mentioned it, the rye gin from Finland.
That's the one I didn't try, and I was searching for a sample. I couldn't find it.
It's tough. It's tough to find, but we put whiskey into those gin barrels, and like 1 week of the whiskey in those barrels, it tastes like gin, and we're like, oh shit, what have we done? This tastes like juniper and pine and hedgerow, and like so we just went, okay, put it over there, forget about it, and we'll come back to it later. So Alex and I went back and tasted it again, and it had softened a little bit. But what we found was, I think it was about 6 to 8 months later, some of the wood notes had come back, and that's what you got to remember, is that aged spirits, a lot of the woodiness that we get from aged spirits aren't found in gin, vodka, or other white spirits. So we associate wood flavors with aged spirits like whiskey, cognac, brandy, and things like that. So some of the juniper and the gin flavors started to dissipate, and the wood started to come back in. And we're like, okay, it's starting to become a little bit more recognizable as whiskey. We just left it. We left it and let it mature and let it come into its own, and moved it to an ex-bourbon cask and incorporated a little bit more of those vanillins and tannins that you expect with the whiskey. And we brought it back to a little bit more of a whiskey characteristic.
Right.
But it was a lesson learned, and it gave us that idea of maybe starting with something aggressive and then petering it out in something inert or something a little bit less impactful. Very
good. Okay. We're on to the last one now, and that is the strong ale. And this was also, as far as I remember, not available in Ireland, or I could be mistaken.
Yes, this one, like we talked about earlier, does have a lot in common with the amber ale that we just talked about.
Yeah.
In that it was one of those ones where we had this product. It was the third in a line with Galway Bay. We did the barley wine, which was the kind of really hoppy one. The strong ale, a little bit more like a wee heavy kind of strong ale beer or a red ale beer. That we were like, okay, so where would this go? Where would this end up? And Belgium, France, Holland were like, we've been crying out for something like this. We understand what a strong ale is.
I actually got this one from Poland, believe it or not.
Yeah, see, there you go. Like they were crying out for stuff like this. So yeah, when you put out that order sheet, I guess, for lack of a better term, of like, we're going to come out with this. Some of our partners were like, yeah, can I have all of it? You're like, well, we can't give you all of it, but we can give you a fair bit. Like, is it going to sit on a shelf or are you going to sell it? They're like, no, we will 100% sell this. You're like, well, I mean, sure, yeah, cool.
Go for it.
So,
so as you said, as you mentioned, this is a wee heavy, as they call it. So it's a Scotch ale, and Scottish ale are usually much sweeter. There's very little hops used, just because Scottish climate is not very good for growing hops, so they didn't ever use as many hops in their beer, and it was a kind of a hearty beer that it'll warm you up at the very kind of bitter cold nights. And I love the way they have them separated between, because there's obviously different strengths, and I love the way the Scots name things. It's fantastic. So they have the light, which is like up to 4%, and they have the heavy, which is like up to 4.55%. Then you have the export heavy, which is like up to 6.5%. And then you have the wee heavy, which is like the wee heavy is the heaviest or the strongest. And I think this one, the Galway Bay, was like a tip of a hat to the guys from Scotland. And their name of the beer was Diving Bell, as far as I remember. And it was 9% ABV. That was a limited run as well. It was like from reviews I read on Untapped, it's very kind of sweet and malty and kind of warming.
The immediate taste you get off this one is burnt caramel, like burnt caramel. Like there's a maltiness there. There's certainly a maltiness there, but there's a strong burnt toffee, burnt caramel.
Burnt toffee. Yeah, there's a lot of those kind of burnt toffee caramel characteristic. Even like salted caramel coming through as well.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly, maybe slightly nutty, like maybe like a pecan jumping in there.
Yeah. Hazelnut pecan kind of. And then it's weird. Like the finish is decent and it's long and it's kind of peters away. Then all of a sudden, like a little like hand raised in a full room of people, there's a hop note. Like there's 100 people in the room, and then there's just one hand raised going hops.
But it sneaks up on you because you don't get it. Like the whiskey's going down, it ends up in your tummy, and that's when you get it. Like it takes quite a bit of time to actually get it. Like it's right at the end of the finish, but then as I'm talking over time now, you can get more and more of that hoppy dryness coming through again. Yeah, it's and it's like I'm getting also like that slight sourness. I don't know.
Yeah, like sourdough kind of.
Yes, that's it. Sourdough bread. If you like cut sourdough bread in half and you take a big waft of the smell, that's kind of slightly what I'm getting at as well.
So the nose for this one isn't impactful. Like it's decent, but it's not impactful. Go back to the small batch.
Yeah,
I just get impacted. Like
it's much more mellow on the nose for sure.
It's like grassy hay. Like grassiness, you don't get any of that caramel that we kind of tasted. Like a lot like lighter maltiness
maybe a bit
on the nose.
Silage, like kind of soured grass, like something that has been cut, that's been laying there for a little longer.
Yeah.
There's like, even though it's quite mellow on the nose, there's a lot of different flavors jumping out at you over time, which is very different because the other 5 we've tasted, they kind of had like one very big element, and then you had everything else in the background. Whereas this is kind of everything is blended together, and there are certain things jumping out you at different times. Every time you go back to it, you can kind of pick up something different.
Well, I get a little bit more of that kind of grassy kind of soil, that wet mulch. You get a little bit more of that on the palate now. After we kind of move past the big hit of toffee burnt caramel, I'm getting a little bit more of that earthiness now after we've kind of come back to it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not nearly as dry as some of the other ones that we were.
No, definitely. It is drier than the amber ale for sure. But it's nowhere near as dry as, let's say, the peated porter or the 200 fathoms. The chocolate porters, I think, will be like out of the porters and the stouts would probably be the sweetest for me anyway. And the others, I'd find them quite dry. But yeah, it's again that hop note is building and building and building. It's just keep coming back at you. As you said, it's just some Egypt shouting hops very loudly.
It is.
Being very obnoxious.
Didn't expect it, and then all of a sudden it's like, what was that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do let us know which one is your favorite, because I really maybe we'll do like a poll on our Instagram or something like that and see actually what people found the nicest, because I'm very interested what people thought, because like having a lineup with so many different styles of beer is absolutely amazing.
Can I say small batch was my favorite? No,
yeah, of course. That means all of them are your favorite. It's the OG. It's the OG.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. It'd be very hard for me to decide. I think some of them are definitely cocktail wort material, that they stand out better in cocktails than maybe on their own. But if I had to choose one between all of them, I think I would go. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence between the amber ale and peated porter. I'm not sure. Nice. I'm kind of on the fence between the two of them. But then again, different perspective, different taste, different likeness of beer. I'm for example, I'm not a big fan of ales or amber ales or any sort of ales. It's just not my kind of thing. I find them a bit too sweet. I do like porters, but then this amber ale finish surprised me a lot. I think it's a smasher. It really is a smashing whiskey.
A few comments coming in on Facebook there.
Amber ale.
Yeah. I think I like the amber ale and the 2020 stout cask.
And the 2020 stout. That'd be your first, the two.
The two, obviously small batch too.
Of course. But yeah, it seems that the Dot Brew amber ale seems to be the crowd favorite so far. So yeah, it's great to see, and that's the newest edition as well. So I mean,
it is, yeah.
That just shows progress. That you keep getting better, and the juice is getting better, and the collaborations are getting better.
Well, I think that's you bring up a good point that Alex and I were talking about. That sorry to hijack you there, but I think that we have the audience maybe ask the question. But yeah, we were talking about discussing that. Like, I think that the fear is, so say someone comes along and I've tried the Chinkapin from Teeling, and it's I think what we're trying to elaborate, I guess, is that it won't be the first and it won't be the last time that we use that. It's a progression. So it's not a box ticking exercise. If you've tasted Chinkapin from Teeling once, that's not going to be the be all and end all that you will see from Chinkapin from Teeling, influences moving forward. The first influence is our first attempt at trying that flavor, like a steak. Like the first time you cook a steak, it was probably okay, but the 500th time you've cooked a steak, it's fantastic because you get better at knowing what to do with it and knowing how to season it and knowing how, like, what temperatures and things like that. So it is
know what you like as well.
But
knowing what your customer base is looking for, what kind of flavors, and you'd probably do that exercise as well as any. You look at the market and what the customers are looking for, what kind of flavors, and you match your whiskeys accordingly as well. So there is an influence in that also. But the progression is absolutely amazing, and it's gonna get better for sure. There's one question I was going to ask you, since you're on your 6th birthday now, and you've been here for 6 years, and you've been distilling in the distillery for 6 years.
Yeah.
Are the small batches now completely your stock produced in Dublin, or are you kind of bringing it in stages, or how does that work? Because obviously your regular small batch is 6 years old, so technically you should have 6-year-old stock sitting in the warehouse that you could use for the small batch. Are you implementing your juice from your distillery slowly over time, like let's say Tullamore does with their regular Tullamore Dew, or are you gonna do like 180 degree switch straight away when you think you're ready?
No, we've been doing a progressive switch for the last 3 years.
3 years, okay.
Yeah, so the malt component of small batch is now from Dublin Distillate. The core single malt, so this one will eventually be retired as we move to a Dublin single malt.
Okay.
The single grain we will keep because we source that from G&D, which is owned by John Teeling. We don't hide that. We just, again, goes back to
part of the family anyway. So you're not going far away.
Exactly. We're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. It's just the fact that we have a fantastic distillery in John Teeling's Great Northern Distillery. Then we don't need to build column still. So we get some fantastic grain whiskey from him, and we look to experiment within that category soon. If that makes sense. So we're going to flesh out our single grain offering. But it's been a progression. So that's when the bottle update that I talked about earlier, the embossing of the Phoenix on our small batch. It also has the Teeling whiskey embossed down the bottom there, you can see. And we also updated our logo. So instead of saying since 1782, it says reborn 2012. So that was, whenever you see a bottle with that, it signifies that the malt component of small batch is a Dublin distillate. I
see now. I just picked up the amber ale and the oldest stout. And there is a slight difference. I also heard, I don't know if it's a true story, that all the Phoenixes are slightly different from each other on the bottles. Is that correct?
That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a rumor that wasn't correct. No, I just wanted to make sure.
That'd be cool. That'd be Rick and Morty level of Easter eggs.
That's it. Yeah. Or I don't know if you're familiar with a beer called Duvel from Belgium.
Yeah.
And up for a point, they had a slight difference in the logo. So usually it was without any difference, but every 1 in 1,000 or 5,000 bottles got a logo which had an angel and a devil on either end of the logo, and only 1 out of few thousand bottles had that label. But unfortunately, they changed it recently, and all labels now have an angel and the devil. But before they changed it, I managed to get one bottle of Duvel with that logo difference. So I was just wondering, because some places and some companies do that kind of Easter egg. And there was one thing I was going to ask you regarding your rum cask, because I heard that a few years ago you had to change the rum casks over from a different distillery because it ceased to produce rum.
No.
Am I correct to say that, or am I wrong?
No, so a little bit, but not really. So basically, the amount of rum casks that we get to make Teeling small batch, that's beyond going to one particular producer. That would dictate a very close working relationship. So we go through cask brokers. In the whiskey industry, it is totally legitimate, business to just be the middleman between the bourbon producers and Scotch producers or Irish producers, the rum producers and the Scotch, Irish, and American producers. So yeah, I mean, Cask Broker, totally legitimate. They sometimes have Coopers in store, they sometimes don't. But yeah, we source through Cask Brokers. That's when you're getting thousands of rum casks or thousands of bourbon casks. So yeah, you want to first and foremost be ensured of quality, because you're buying so many in a shipload. And then secondly, it's a profile, so Central American. In the past, when Teeling was young in 2012, we used to get barrels that had stamps on the side of the bottle, and some people with Teeling used to tell people the stamps.
Okay.
We never had the agreement with those companies. They would sell their barrels to the stockbrokers, the cask brokers, and then we would get them. So people would share that information, and you sometimes you're not really in a collaborative partnership. It's not like us with Plantation, where we tell people that we get casks from Plantation.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, we had no partnership with these rum brands, and they had no partnership with us. So nowadays, what you're seeing is that brands that do stamp at the side of their barrels, they shave that off or they sand that off before it gets sold on. So yeah, I mean, you may have heard in the past that we got specific rum barrels from certain companies, and we may still do, but we just don't know, because from day one to day now, they come through that barrel wholesaler, that broker. So yeah, I mean, it's the style more than the brand that we're looking for.
Right. That makes sense. Very good. Okay. I think we're going to move on to the beer now, since you were craving it for nearly all the taste, and I'm pretty thirsty myself. And that beer, I'm not going to lie, I had a can before the tasting a few weeks ago, just so I did my notes and I knew what to say. And oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. Like, I mean, so it's a pale ale from Dot Brew, and it was aged in the Calvados casks that you use for your single malt, right?
Yes, the Brabazon 4.
Yeah, and holy Jesus, the influence of that cask is so good. Like, I mean, you'd think you're like drinking like pale ale mixed with apple juice, nearly, like a hint of apple juice, right, like over on the top. It's smashing. So I think everyone will enjoy this very much, and I think we'll push down the whiskeys quite nicely into your belly. So yeah, I'm quite happy that this is the last drink. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, pale ale finished in our Calvados casks. Carcavelos casks. We got into a whole issue with that one, but anyway, yeah, what are you gonna do? Dave, I don't know what you're talking about. Kieran, no plans to use clear. I mean, we always use clear bottles, Kieran. Not for small batch. I mean, small batch is kind of recognizably the dark green. We still use clear bottles for the single grain. Yeah, I mean, the clear bottles are nice to have, and we'll still continue to use them. I think Brabazon 4, Brabazon 3, Brabazon 3 was dark, Brabazon 4 was clear. Yeah, the Renaissance, the Revivals, all clear bottles. It just depends on the whiskey, really.
Yeah, like, I mean, even your other series, like as you mentioned, the Revivals and maybe the higher end bottles, like your 24 and the 33. The shapes kind of changed a little bit in that on that side of the category that you have. You have the kind of the taller bottles now instead of maybe little stumpy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're a little bit taller rather than being stumpy like let's say the 33-year-old or the 24-year-old that you had as well. But yeah, like, I mean, as you said, it's all progression, all trying new different things, and with this lineup, you can clearly see that you're not afraid of doing things and changing things and experimenting with many different ways you can, and it's clearly visible with this lineup. I can't wait to see more out of Teeling, especially after this. Like, I mean, I didn't expect to have such a different flavor profile with each one of them, even though like when you dig down, the DNA is exactly the same. There's only a few months difference in different casks here and there, but like, I mean, you'd expect that the difference won't be as prevalent, but it's a completely different ballgame. It's yeah, I didn't expect this. I don't know if you did, but I didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime we do any of the collaborative tastings, I always try and include some small batch, because it does give a significant point of difference. If you don't have, so like, for example, when we first did the rum casks, Chris was talking about it earlier, where we did rum agricole, plantation rum, and small batch. It was a great example of 3 different rum finishes. So very similar to what you've done here today, showcasing, the only difference between each of these is the different influences, but they're all in the same category. So it's remarkably different. And I think and it's a beautiful thing about the future of Irish whiskey, not just Teeling whiskey, but Irish whiskey. The future of flavor within Irish whiskey is so great because of the loose classifications around the seasoned casks as well as wood types. A lot of people talk about wood types right now, but talk about seasoned casks. There's no restriction in seasoned casks like there is in Scotch.
Like it has to be oak and all that. You hear
exactly,
it quite often, yeah.
So the future of flavor, but not only that, it's the demographic choosing to drink Irish whiskey. The people that are coming to the Irish category are looking for something different. They're not brand loyal. They're not that whole idea of my granddaddy drunk this and my daddy drunk this, and that brand loyalty. Yeah, exactly. That was a bit of that cigarette mentality of like, oh, I smoke Marlboros and he smoked Marlboros, so therefore, it was that brand loyalty. I think we're moving away from that, and instead people are responding to craft spirits and flavor. They respond to what they like, and going to back to restaurants and things like that. People are quite adventurous with the things that they choose to try on a daily basis, and the people that are coming to Teeling Whiskey are very interested by the unique and different and new and exciting and challenging the idea of what whiskey can be, and that's brilliant, and it's great for the Irish whiskey category.
Is there something that you'd like to change in the current laws that are here? Like as we mentioned, the rules and regulations are quite loose, but I know that there's talks of having specific mash bills for specific categories that was brought in already. But do you think that there's something somewhere that you think could be improved or tweaked when it comes to the technical file, in your opinion?
I mean, it starts with a whole, I think we're maybe looking to have it all now. Does that make sense? It's super interesting and it's super exciting that Ireland has its own unique Irish style of whiskey. That is brilliant. But there is so much work to do to educate the world into what that is. So I think, working within that framework is a good starting step. Yes, there are a myriad of other grains that we can use that are still could be technically considered single pot still, a higher percentage of oats or anything like that. There is a conversation to be had there.
Obviously, Fionn did a lot of work.
But there's a ton of work to be done. But the education that you'd need to undertake to translate that to, because I used to travel to the US, and it was a tough time to explain what single pot still was with the current GI that we have.
Right.
So elaborating that even further, very quickly, the summary of it. What's single pot still? Single pot still only unique to Ireland contains minimum 30% malted barley, minimum 30% unmalted barley, and a maximum 5% of anything else. What? You lost me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's work to be done within the single pot still category. Would I like to see it eventually change and include more? Yeah, sure. In the future, yes. But I would also like to see single pot still being enjoyed in every country of the globe. I would like single pot still to be as recognizable as single malt Scotch. I would like movies to say, instead of saying I would like to enjoy a Scotch, I would like them to say I would enjoy a whiskey. There's little things like that I would love to see on a global scale. Plenty of work to be done for the whole Irish whiskey category, and there's only uphill to go.
Great. Well, I think we're going to leave it at that.
Fair enough.
We've done quite a bit of tasting. We've done quite a bit of research, and I mean, it's been a fantastic evening. I really appreciate all your help that you've given us. You know, as I mentioned before, you sponsored the small batch that everyone can taste and compare with other ones, and you sponsored the beer as well, which is very nice of you and the Teeling team. So thank you very much for all your help to make this happen. And I can't wait to see more from you and from obviously the Teeling Whiskey Company and what you come up with and all the mad projects that you have down in pipeline. I'm sure there's many different ones that we'll all get excited about the next few years down the line. And I can't wait. And I'm pretty sure that everyone that was listening today can't wait either. So thank you everyone for joining in, whoever could. I'm sure there'll be a couple of people watching after work because there was many bartenders that bought the sets, and obviously they're at work at the minute, as our guest host is right now as well, making a lot of porn star martinis and daiquiris and all his favorite things that he loves. I can just imagine him sweating under that mask and saying a few fucks and shits, I'd say, as well in the meantime. Shit, I should have said that myself.
That's right. Just edit it out. It's not like it's live TV.
Victoria, can you get on it? But yeah, once again, thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Robert, for taking your time out of your very busy schedule to guide us through the process of making this happen and telling us how things are made in Teeling Whiskey. And yeah, we can't wait to see more out of you. And we're working on something very special ourselves with regards to tasting, so keep an eye out on what's in plan, because there is more tasting. Hopefully those tastings will be live. They won't be online anymore, but look, you never know. As they said, they're already looking at extending the lockdown for pubs and bars, so we don't know if it's actually, we're going to be open on the 5th now, so keep an eye out. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting things down the pipeline from us and definitely from you as well, so yeah. Thank you all so much for joining in. Thank you, Robert, once again. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.